Hey everybody, it is Thursday, January 17th, 2013. This is Nick Franklin. I'm at the WIKISPEED shop here in Linwood, and I am extremely stoked because the last day and a half I've been trying to get this thing to start, and it wouldn't start, and this whole electrical system that I just put together was not working correctly, and I was having a hell of a time trying to figure out why. Basically, a lot of the stuff that I've done and the way that I designed the system is it's mostly negative triggered relays for the ignition switch and things like that. So it's an extremely low current ground that the ignition switch sends to relays, which turn the ignition on instead of using the ignition switch to distribute power to the relays, which distribute power to everything else. So the reason that I wanted to do that is because I wanted to be able to use like CAT5 cable to make the ignition work and do all that stuff, since it would be extremely low current from the ignition switch turning on the relays instead of high current. Yeah, so the problem is, apparently, and I've never had this issue before, the CAT5, which is 24 gauge, is still too small to supply current to the relays that we need to turn the vehicle on. And the way that I have it set up is in the front of the vehicle, underneath this board, and it's a complete mess. Excuse it, because like I said, I've just spent the last 2 days trying to figure this thing out, and I pretty much had to tear up all the wiring and everything that I did. And I'm ready to go home, so I'm not going to fix it tonight, but soon. Anyways, this is a pretty ugly mess, but basically the ignition switch sends a signal. We have an accessory relay up here, and you can see a little harness that I put together for the ignition switch. Sorry, just a sec. The harness for the ignition switch, right there, somewhere. Anyways, ignition switch grounds an accessory relay. The accessory relay only gives power to anything up here. Accessory is for the amplifier, maybe a power outlet to charge your cell phone, stuff like that. And then there's an ignition 2 relay. What ignition 2 does is that's what cuts the power to the windshield wipers, to your turn signals, the lights on your gauge cluster, your heater, and all that, and allows the vehicle to use all that energy to start it. So this relay only gets power when the ignition is on, but it doesn't have power when it's starting. There's another little relay that I put under here. It's not the starter relay, but it is the relay that cuts power to these other 2 relays when the car is starting. So even though we're using relays now instead of the ignition switch, it still functions exactly how it was supposed to from the factory. And yeah, so anyways, that mess right there, all the fuses and everything. Yeah, so back to the problem, which was the CAT5 cables that I was using created some really weird problems that were kind of difficult to diagnose, and I was pretty tired because I've been pulling all-nighters on this thing, so I didn't do the most logical diagnosis procedure that I could have. But anyways, Rob Beresford, we were talking about it, and he kind of like helped me reset my brain, and I was like, hey, I should just run a wire across and bypass the CAT5 cable, which seems like what any normal person would do, but I didn't think about it because I was so tired and overwhelmed. Anyways, I did that, figured out the CAT5 cable was bad, and patched it up, and it started. So now we're gonna get back to all the stuff that I was trying to do. So I'm actually gonna make another video out of that, and that will come up next.